Hi there. So this particular video is going to cover Chapter 16 in your textbook. Chapter 16 gets into the vegetarian dietary pattern. And so vegetarian is definitely something that is becoming more mainstream in the United States. Many folks are starting to, play around a little bit with vegetarian types of diets and they can come in many different forms as well. Vegetarian diets can be, very restrictive and then not very restrictive. So we'll take a look at the different types of vegetarian diets here in just a second. But as far as the vegetarian diets in general, they're definitely similar to some other healthy dietary patterns that are out there today. One is the DASH diet. DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, so high blood pressure. So this is a great dietary pattern that folks can go on that's going to really limit the amount of sodium, and it's definitely a heart-healthy diet. The Mediterranean diet is another popular dietary pattern that really emphasizes more of a plant-based consumption of foods. And then also the My Plate, the Choose My Plate. So these types of diets emphasize things like whole grains. Definitely want to have the whole grain intact. More fruits and vegetables. They've got a lot of beans, nuts, seeds, fish, poultry. Notice there isn't any red meat in there. And then oils, unsaturated fats. So things like canola oil, olive oil, things like that. They de-emphasize the higher fat meats like the red meats, the processed meats like the bologna and hot dogs and the deli meats. They de-emphasize those higher full-fat dairy products and then also the sugar-sweetened foods and beverages. There are many benefits for having a vegetarian diet, and one of the biggest ones is that it's going to lower your blood pressure and it's going to help improve your lipids. So your cholesterol levels are going to be lower as a result of being on this particular type of dietary pattern. So if you are a person who has high blood pressure and high cholesterol, this is something that you might want to investigate more on. It's also going to thereby reduce your risk of developing heart disease and having obesity. And then also, a good vegetarian diet does provide enough calories that we need over the course of the day. It can provide all of those essential nutrients, and it can supply a lot of fiber and lots of those phytochemicals, things that give the plant foods color. So you can see there are many reasons why people choose vegetarian diets. So it's not just for personal health. We want to improve our health, but there are many other reasons why people try to adopt a vegetarian lifestyle. As far as the different types, you can see there are 7 different vegetarian diets listed here. And like I said, they can range from least restrictive all the way down to the most restrictive. So the least restrictive would be that semi-vegetarian. And those are the folks who basically they just don't eat red meat, but they will eat chicken, poultry, they'll eat fish, they'll eat eggs, they'll eat the dairy products, and of course those plant foods. Then you have those fish or pesco vegetarians who they'll only eat fish, right? They won't eat the poultry, they won't eat the red meat, and they will not have eggs or milk, but they'll eat fish along with their plant foods. The lacto-ovo vegetarians, they will eat the dairy products along with their plant foods, and then the lacto-vegetarians will only eat the milk and milk products. They won't eat the eggs along with those plant foods. And then of course you can see the most restrictive being the vegans and then the raw food folks. Those are the people who strictly only eat plant foods. So the more strict we become with our dietary pattern, there's going to be a greater chance of having specific nutrient deficiencies, and we'll talk about those in just a second. So strict vegetarians are definitely less likely to be overweight than semi-vegetarians, but both groups, so either the strict, like the vegans, or the semi-vegetarians, who are the folks who just don't eat red meat, but they'll eat poultry, fish, eggs, milk, things like that with their plant foods. Both of those groups still have lower obesity rates than those people who are non-vegetarian. So that's very interesting. So again, the more restrictive that vegetarian diet is, the more likely that it's going to have a lower amount of key nutrients in it. So some of those very restrictive diets may not meet the needs of those pregnant women, breastfeeding women, those little ones, and obviously people who have chronic disease. So some of the higher nutrient deficiencies in those very strict diets would be B12, that's a pretty common one, vitamin D, calcium, and then EPA and DHA are common items that we see lower, or having a lower intake of in these vegetarian diets. Here you can see the My Plate and kind of what it looks like for a vegetarian. Grains, definitely wanting to have 6 or more servings a day. The beans, the nuts, things like that, you're looking at 5 or more servings. So this is where we're going to get a lot of our protein. Vegetables, 4 or more servings. Fruits, 2 or more. Then we've got our smart fats, 2 or more servings a day. And then our sweets are very, very minimal. Here you can see the intake of a vegetarian diet. This is a 31-year-old, 130-pound female. You can see over the course of the day what they had for breakfast, lunch, dinner, even snacks are included in that. And that dietary pattern you can see here resulted in about 2,170 calories. So all of that still resulted in almost 2,200 calories. You can see protein, look at that, 87 grams when we only need 46. So vegetarians can definitely get enough protein in their diet without consuming any meat. Fiber you can see is really high as well, which is great. That's awesome. And then as far as the fat, the saturated fat is below what's recommended, so that's great. Cholesterol is very, very low. And then, of course, those nutrients of concern, the EPA and DHA, were one of the ones that we were worried about. That is a little low in this particular diet. In addition to that, other low places, we see vitamin C is just a little bit low. And then you can see that vitamin B12, which is another one of those nutrients of concern, was a little bit low here. And then, of course, calcium, look at that. Not even half of what's recommended for calcium. So in that particular diet, they are lacking in a few areas. Notice they did for vitamin D get enough vitamin D, even though that was listed as one of the nutrients of concern. But that vitamin D, for this particular person, they got from that soy milk. Okay. So here again, 4 key nutrients of concern. You got your B12, vitamin D, calcium, and then DHA are pretty big ones. You can see the ARC-DA for what adults should be. And then here are some possible food sources. So those vegetarians can still get adequate amounts of these key nutrients if they include these types of foods in their diet. So definitely planning out those vegetarian meals can give us adequate amounts of protein by combining those plant foods. So remember we talked about with the protein chapter, when we take individual plant foods, they're incomplete, meaning they're missing 1 or more of those essential amino acids, but when we combine them together, they complement each other and they form that complete protein, therefore giving us all 9 of those essential amino acids that we need. So then you can see here, these are all types of plant foods that are combined together. So complementary sources of plant proteins, so like beans and rice, hummus and bread, those are all great examples of ways that vegetarians can combine their plant foods and still get those 9 essential amino acids. So again, vegetarian diets are becoming more mainstream, so check them out.